Okay, so here is a detailed breakdown of the new V-level qualifications in England, what they are, how they work, how they relate to existing routes like A-levels and T-levels, and what the implications are for students after their GCSEs. So first of all, what are V-levels? The term V-level or V-levels refers to a new set of vocational qualifications being introduced by the UK government for 16 to 19-year-olds in England and Wales. Here are the key points. They're intended to be a third route alongside the more academic A-levels and the technical T-levels routes. They'll replace or absorb many of the existing vocational qualifications at level 3 that have been considered confusing. For example, around 900 existing vocational qualifications are to be replaced. They're designed to be flexible, mixing with other qualifications, e.g. students could do V-levels alongside A-levels rather than being strictly one or the other. The government's rationale is that vocational education has been undervalued, an afterthought for too long, as they said. The V-levels are meant to strengthen the vocational skills pathway and make it clearer for students, employers and institutions. So, how will V-levels work? Here are the details that I know so far about structure, timing and how they compare. So, structure and timing. V-levels are targeted at students aged 16 to 19, so that's after GCSEs in England. So you choose your pathway at the end of your GCSEs year. V-levels will sit alongside A-levels and T-levels. Students can mix V-levels with A-levels, giving more flexibility. For instance, a student might do an A-level plus one or more V-levels. They're intended to replace the larger number of less well understood vocational qualifications at level 3. There's an indication of increased funding for 16 to 19-year-olds education in 2026 to 27 to support this reform. The number 800 million additional funding has been mentioned, but as far as I can tell, there is no funding for those above the age of 19. So, comparisons with the A-levels and T-levels. A-levels. These provide an academic route, typically 2 years, and they're recognised for university entry. T-levels, technical qualifications, developed in recent years. They are 2-year courses, the equivalent to about 3 A-levels for many students. They're more immersive in a technical field and include work placements. And the new V-levels are the vocational route with more flexibility. While T-levels often replace the full A-level route for a specific technical discipline, V-levels are more modular and can be combined with A-levels. So here's a hypothetical example of how V-levels might work. A student wanting to get into, say, creative arts or media industry could choose to take a traditional A-level alongside 2 V-levels, perhaps one in craft and design, perhaps one in media, broadcast and production. Or a student wanting to get into either the health and fitness industry, but also wants to learn about digital technology, could perhaps do 3 V-levels, perhaps in sports and exercise science, digital technologies and health and care services. They can combine the 3 different courses. So what does this mean for students after their GCSEs? If you've finished or are just finishing your GCSEs, which is typically around the age of 16 in England, and are thinking about your next steps, here's how V-levels might feature in your decision making. More choice. You'll have the option to choose a route that mixes vocational and academic learning, giving you a path tailored to your interests and career goals. Flexible combinations. Instead of being locked into purely academic or purely technical careers, you might be able to combine them. For example, you could do 1 or 2 A-levels plus 1 or more V-levels if that fits your interests. Better clarity. This reform aims to make vocational routes more understandable to you, to employers and to universities. So if you choose a vocational path, it should be clearer what the qualification means. Skills focus. If you lean towards more practical, skills-based learning, say engineering, digital, creative, health and care, then V-levels might be the way to go, especially if you prefer hands-on learning and want to move into a career or an apprenticeship rather than go to university. But if you want the university progression or the apprenticeship progression, the idea is that V-levels should lead to good jobs or further study. Apprenticeships, technical colleges and universities, rather than being a dead end. So they have a specific end point. When and what to choose. Now this is important. You'll probably choose your programme, perhaps A-levels or T-levels or V-levels or a mixture at the age of 16, just before you move up from GCSE to A-level or to sixth form. It's important to check with colleges and sixth forms locally what they offer and how they'll implement V-levels once they're operational. They're not at the moment. It's even more important to check with universities if you have a specific career or course in mind to ascertain whether or not they will accept V-level qualifications. Some universities, particularly the Russell Group universities, such as Oxford, Cambridge and other high-ranking universities, can sometimes be very specific about exactly what kind of qualification you require. You don't want to sign up for and spend years studying for a qualification if it doesn't lead you to the exact next step on your career path. So, if in doubt, check. English and maths. The reforms are also accompanied by renewed emphasis on all students having good passes in GCSE English and maths, which remain important. So, what to watch out for? What are the current uncertainties about V-levels? As with any reform, there are some important caveats and areas still developing. Rollout timing. The full details are still being finalised and rolled out via the government's upcoming white paper on post-16 education and skills. Local availability. Not all colleges or schools will necessarily have every V-level option immediately. Availability may vary by region and by institution. They might need to take time to train people up in order to teach them or deliver them. Recognition and perception. Even though the aim is clear vocational skills progression, the perception by universities and employers is something to check. They might not be aware of V-levels, they might not understand them. How do they value V-levels, especially in competitive fields? Perhaps ask before you choose them. Clarity with other routes. For a while there will be multiple routes, A-levels, T-levels, V-levels, plus existing vocational qualifications, coexisting all together. So you'll still need to check what qualification you're taking, what it is and how it's valued locally or with the establishment that you want to move to next. Implementation detail. Things such as how many credits a V-level counts for, say, on the UCAS application, how much external assessment versus coursework is required, etc. These are all still being worked out in all cases, and you need to weigh these up once they're finalised. Some courses and some subjects are more coursework heavy, and if you choose 3 or 4 coursework heavy qualifications, you might find that you're overwhelmed. So check. Weigh up what is included in the qualification, what is expected of you. Progression pathways. If you start a V-level, you should understand what comes after it, whether it leads to a T-level, an apprenticeship, a university or a direct job. Some pathways may be stronger than others. English maths requirement. As said before, regardless of the route, most post-16 programmes will insist that you have finished and completed your English and maths at a good level, or that you have to do them at the same time as your other qualifications if you haven't passed them yet. So I'm going to attach underneath here a link to a page that's got all this information on it on my website, and also to a couple of downloadable PDF documents that you can take away and study in more depth afterwards. So, what subjects? vocational areas will V-levels cover? Due to the fact that V-levels are still newly announced today, the full subject list is not yet finalised, but from available sources I've ascertained the following. The government says V-levels could include engineering, agriculture or digital technology as examples of sectors. Another announcement gives example subject areas. For instance, it might be a career in the creative arts or media. Similarly, a student considering health or fitness or sports and exercise might choose a V-level. The new qualification description emphasises priority industries of the economy. So that to me says that you want to check your chosen V-level leads to a career that is right for you and is beneficial for you, rather than just training you up to be a worker for a priority industry that requires low-paid bodies to fill its staff shortages. If in doubt, double check. So, is this something that the government wants to fill job vacancies, or is this something that will benefit you in your future? Really check carefully, because there might be a combination of both. So while there isn't yet a complete published list, you can expect V-levels to cover vocational skills-based subject areas across sectors such as digital technologies, sports and exercise, health and social care, creative and design, engineering, agriculture, land management, and possibly others where vocational skills are important. So, what type of qualification is a V-level? Vocational versus academic? So V-levels are clearly vocational, skills-based, rather than purely academic, but there are some flexibilities built in. Some key features: V-levels are intended to combine practical skills and vocational learning. They're designed specifically for 16 to 19-year-olds who have finished GCSEs and want a skills or industry route. But unlike some vocational equivalents, they are intended to be mixable with academic study, A-levels, rather than forcing a purely vocational route. For example, you can combine V-levels courses with existing A-levels. They are not purely academic like A-levels, which focus on depth of academic subject content and theory. They are also distinct from the full technical route of T-levels. So V-levels are a vocational skills route. Academic theory is still present, but the emphasis is on work-relevant skills, real industries and flexibility. To me, this implies that the government is trying to fill gaps in certain industries. They're looking for people to fill jobs, which on one side might not be good for you if these are low-paid jobs and they just want bodies on the ground, or they might be very good for you if they lead to specific jobs that are well paid and that will give you a career for life. So you really do need to check exactly what they lead to. So what is the relationship between V-levels, A-levels and T-levels? Do they run alongside or replace? So here's how V-levels relate to the two main other level 3 post-GCSE routes. With A-levels, V-levels are designed to run alongside A-levels, and you can do a combination. This mix means you wouldn't necessarily have to choose purely academic or purely vocational. You could blend them, which is a bit like the American model where you can choose different modules. V-levels are not intended to replace A-levels. They will run alongside. T-levels. T-levels were introduced first in 2020 as technical or occupational qualifications, equivalent to A-levels in size. The announcement about V-levels emphasises that they will sit alongside T-levels and will not replace them, so T-levels will still exist. A key difference is that T-levels are a full 2-year course in a single occupational specialism, and in many cases you cannot combine them with other A-levels. By contrast, V-levels are intended to allow combinations and a mixture and more flexibility. So are they replacements or are they parallel? They are not replacements. They are parallel. They're providing a third route in addition to the other two. However, V-levels are intended to replace the older vocational qualifications such as BTECs, applied general qualifications, the level 3 qualifications, which the government says are confusing or overlapping. So, what's wrong with T-levels? Why do we need V-levels? The issues with T-levels. While T-levels are relatively new and ambitious, there are several problems and several criticisms have arisen. Uptake has been slower than expected. Fewer young people are choosing T-levels compared to academic routes or older vocational routes. T-levels are quite strict. There are large programmes, equivalent to 3 A-levels, often in one only occupational specialism. So you really need to want to do that occupation, because once you've done your T-level, you're stuck with it and you've put a lot of effort in. They have a substantial industry placement, which is 45 to 60 days, which can also be challenging for providers and employers to deliver, as well as for students to do. For some students, especially those who are less academically confident or uncertain about their career path, committing to one specific occupational specialism for 2 years may be too restrictive or too narrowly pitched. So they're widening the choices, making it more flexible. And because of these issues, the government has already made reforms to T-levels, to the placement rules, to make them more flexible, but the uptake is still low, so that's why they are implementing reforms. So, given the above, the government's rationale for V-levels includes streamlining the level 3 vocational landscape. There are approximately 900 different vocational qualifications available for 16 to 19-year-olds at level 3. The government says this is confusing for learners, employers and providers. They intend V-levels to replace many of these. Offering more flexibility by allowing the combination of V-levels with A-levels rather than locking students into one course aims to cater better for students who want a mixture of vocational and academic and who aren't exactly sure what job path they want. Supporting students who may not be suited to the full T-level route. V-levels provide a pathway for students who might find the T-level model of a single specialism too narrow or too big, but they still want a strong vocational learning. A better match to the labour market and the need for skills. By focusing on priority industries and providing clear skills pathways, the aim is to reduce the number of young people not in employment, education or training, and support social mobility. Again, double-edged sword. So you might find that you're being trained to fill gaps in the market rather than choosing what you actually want to do. But you might also find that this leads to getting you a job, which is quite difficult to do these days unless you are looking for something on minimum wage. So make sure that you find out what kind of wages can be expected in the industry that you're looking at and what kind of jobs these V levels will lead to if you choose a particular subject. So ensuring progression routes via jobs, apprenticeships and further study. The government emphasises that the new V-levels should lead to good jobs and further study, although what good jobs means is another matter. So the key takeaways. Basically, if you're thinking about your options after GCSEs, V-levels will give you another meaningful pathway to consider if you want vocational skills learning, but also want flexibility. For example, you might want to keep academic options open. If you lean more towards an academic path and plan to go to university straight away, then A-levels remain the best fit. If you're very clear about one specific technical occupation, such as engineering, digital sector, construction, etc., you might want a full vocational route. A T-level might still be the best choice, but check how available it is locally, what the requirements are, and whether it suits you. Because V-levels are new, check with your local college and sixth form about which ones they plan to offer, what the subjects are, what combination options there are with A-levels or other courses, what do they support, and how recognised they'll be by employers' universities. You might find that different colleges in your area offer different subjects and different V-levels and different combinations, so it's wise to check all of them. They won't all be the same. Finally, whichever route you pick, you'll still need to think about your English and maths. It's always down to English and maths, isn't it? If you've not yet achieved good passes in GCSE, that remains important for all progression paths, and it will be expected of you to get them at some point. So that's the new V-levels. I'll do an update when I find out more, but for the moment I'll post a link to the webpage underneath here, this video, and I'll also provide a link to the downloadables as well that provide you more information. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to hear more about art lessons or art teaching or how to set up an art business. Bye.